So just a video explaining Brendegen's study. So remember, so far we've looked at physical aggression, but Brendegen's study looks at social aggression. Social aggression can be either overt or covert. So overt is threatening to withdraw friendship, letting the person who you're being aggressive against know that you're being aggressive against them. Whereas covert is not letting them know who is being aggressive against them, so doing things like gossiping behind their back. So there's been relatively little research into the causes or the origins or the sources of social aggression. And this is what this study is about, to find out if it's nature or nurture. So we've already seen in other studies that physical aggression is strongly genetic or biological to some degree. And this is the first study to try and look at that with social aggression. One theory that Brendegen has is that children start off as physically aggressive, and then over time they learn new skills, new abilities, which make them become, say, verbally aggressive or socially aggressive. Yeah, so when they basically learn that they can use social skills or verbal attacks instead of just physical ones. So the aim of this study was to find out what extent the variance in social aggression is explained by genetic shared environment and non-shared environmental factors. So again, looking at the whole nature-nurture relationship and to see what the relationship is between physical and social aggression. So we've got 322 twin pairs, 237 were same-sex and physical resemblance was used to identify them as MZ or DZ. And for 123 of those pairs, we then tested their DNA to make sure that our assessment of them being MZ or DZ was correct. And from that sample, we could assume that the rest were correct or incorrect. And we showed a 94% agreement. So 94% of the time when we said they were MZ twins, the DNA backed that up and said, yes, in fact, they were. Bit of information about where they were from and a bit more about the kind of sets of twins. Probably more than we'll need, but you can have a look at it and make some notes on it as kind of an extension. So this is kind of the background, how much yearly income the family made, things like that. We looked at them at 5, 18, 30, 48 and 60 months. And then again at 6 years. So it was a longitudinal study in that case, looking at them kind of how they developed over that time. And then again at 6 years is when we looked at them when the main part of the study took place. By then this is what the sample was, 234 twin pairs. And then that breaks it down into kind of how many were MZ, how many were DZ, whether they were males, females, or mixed, and things like that. There was no real difference in regards to zygosity, family status, and mother's level of education for those who were there and those who dropped out. However, the fathers did have a slightly higher level of education than those who were lost from the study. So we administered everything in this study in both English and in French. And what happened was we looked at them in their natural setting at nursery. 175 of the 234 twin pairs did not attend the same classroom, whereas 59 pairs did. We measured overall in 409 different classrooms. Each test kind of took about 45 minutes, and children were encouraged not to share their responses with each other. This is to avoid kind of demand characteristics and things like that. So what teachers had to do first off is rate the children on social and physical aggression. So they had to answer questions like tries to make others dislike a child, becomes friends with another child for revenge, says bad things or spreads nasty rumours about other children, and gets into fights, physically attacks others, and so on. And what they had to do was rate it on a 3-point scale of never, sometimes, and often. So the teacher rated every kid in the class never, sometimes, and often on each kind of these questions. For the children, we gave them booklets with photos of everyone in the class. And they had very similar questions, like tells others not to play with a child, tells mean secrets about another child, gets into fights, and so on. And what they had to do was circle or pick the 3 kids from all the pictures who were most like that kind of description. And what we see, most times the twins were selected in these selections. So in the results, according to the teachers, boys were more likely to be physically aggressive than girls. Girls were more likely to be socially aggressive than boys. These differences, however, were not statistically significant. So we can, to some degree, say that they're not as important as kind of what's coming. When we look at the genetics, there was a much higher correlation or concordance for MZ twins than DZ twins in physical aggression. Therefore, we can say that that correlation or concordance means that physical aggression is due to genetics or biology. MZ twins and DZ twins had a similar rating on social aggression, which would suggest that social aggression comes from environmental factors. So physical aggression is strongly biological, whereas social aggression is more environmental than it is biological. The correlation seen between physical and social aggression of 0.79, so that's a strong positive correlation, in twins was mainly due to genetics rather than shared environment. So I'll get onto that in 2 seconds. So what that means is the aggression itself may be biological, but how it gets shown may be determined by the environment. So how much they've been taught to not be physically aggression, how they've learned to be aggressive in the past, things like that. So the second aim, kind of the results of that would tell us that physical aggression is the precursor to social aggression. Children are physically aggressive first and then become socially aggressive. There was a strong correlation between teachers' ratings and the children's ratings. The researchers found that 62% of genetic factors affecting social aggression also affect physical aggression. And the kind of key conclusions from this is about 50 to 60% of the difference in physical aggression is due to genes. So again, it's genetic. Whereas social aggression, only about 20% was genetic. And 60% came from environmental factors. So again, we get the idea of physical aggression, strongly biological, social aggression, more due to the environment. There's a moderate overlap between the two types of aggression. And we do move from physical to social aggression as we age. And that is it very briefly. Obviously, we did the evaluation in class. Thanks for listening.